And Daniel, I'd like you to just describe briefly, what does it look like? Remembering that the target audience here are students that haven't really paid a utility bill. They don't understand it, like Gary said, like they might understand banking. Can you give us some concrete examples of residential, commercial, and industrial uses of the green button standard?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure to be here and talk to people about green button and utility data. So the main thing, if you can think about, if you are a, say, for example, an electric vehicle charging company, you go to a building owner and you're like, hey, I want to install some EV chargers. Say you go to a grocery store, or you go to a department store, or you go to a parking garage, and you're like, hey, I want to install EV chargers. If you ever wondered how those things end up there, this is kind of the process by which that happens, where you have a business owner, or you have a, say, a residential customer, so say a homeowner, or say an apartment complex. They want to install some electric vehicle charging. Well, electric vehicles are run on electricity, which means that you're going to be pulling a lot of electricity from the power system, from the grid, that you weren't pulling before, right? Because all of that energy that moved cars around on gasoline just came from a gas station. And so that wasn't a part of the electricity grid anymore. And so there's a lot of considerations that you have to put in place on how that will affect your energy usage. So if you're an apartment complex owner and you want to install electric vehicle charging, you're going to be working with a company who is trying to figure that out. And one of the first questions you're going to have is, well, how's that going to affect my electric bill? Like, all of this energy that used to be coming from the gas station is now going to be coming through my wires on my electric bill. And that's a big deal. Like, you don't know how that'll affect you. And so the way that the industry does that is they take a look at your historical electricity bills, and then they compare them against what a theoretical installation would look like. The same thing with installing solar, or installing even something as simple as an updated furnace or energy efficiency air conditioner, or upgrades to lighting. You're going to want to do a compare and contrast from before, say the last year of data utility bills before, and then run through your calculations on how that is going to affect your utility bill. Because how much your utility bill goes up or down, or how much you save by installing, will go into determining whether or not you want to do that. And that's very, very important information, and kind of a blocker to deploying all of these energy efficient and new energy technology things like electric vehicles and like rooftop solar and battery storage and all of that sort of stuff. And so that energy data access, prior to Green Button Connect, prior to the digitization that we're talking about today, all of that was basically manual data entry. You would ask an apartment owner, hey, can you go over to your filing cabinet and give me your bills? And then you would take those bills and make copies of them and then type them into a spreadsheet. And then that's what you would do to gain that access, or to do those calculations. And that was really, really time consuming, and it really added to the cost of installing all of this new energy technology. And so this opening of data access, and again, Green Button revolves around the building owner or the homeowner consenting to the data access. So they're going to be the ones who say, yes, I approve this data access. Once we have streamlined that and digitized that, all of a sudden you can do these analyses just fully automated. You can just run through them. And so hopefully today, as part of the hackathon, we can show how easy it is. What normally would have taken months of manual data entry and processing and finding the missing bill, that sort of thing, what we're doing is, when we've digitized this, we have shrunk that time span down to be like less than 5 minutes to get the data you need to do your calculation. And so that sort of revolution in data access that Lakefront Utilities is now offering is incredibly important to unlocking the sort of energy acceleration of the energy transition that we need for meeting climate goals. So that's a little bit of overview of why data access is important. I hope that went a little bit to explaining it. I plan on doing like a demonstration for those teams who want to actually do an integration or try to get some data, but we can wait for those teams that are interested in this particular pitch.
Okay, so would you be available down the road if we gave you a heads up for that? Yeah, that's great. And then what Keith will do is we'll extract your training. It was very good. I mean, I could do it. If I could do it, anyone can do it. It was very clear. You're a great teacher, instructor, and so we'll leverage that. The other thing I want to ask you just briefly, I'm in this building and the students last year did an audit. They were using the EPA tool called Portfolio Manager, and the Ministry of Natural Resources Canada Canadianized it. And can I ask you to describe that tool briefly? Are you familiar with it? Okay, and then the second one, okay, that, and now we applied it to this building, Venture 13, where we're broadcasting from. Now it has a mixed use, so it's a startup. Well, we're in this lecture lab here, and they have a seminar room, and then they have offices behind me over there. And so startups will rent space here and they can come in anytime, any of the day and night to access access this facility. Now, the other thing is on the second floor, we have the National Police Records, and it's a data center. So a big consumer of electricity. I think, well, I shouldn't say what the bill is, but it's exorbitant. And there's only 1 meter on this building. So one of the things, in order to address equity and understand the true costs and understand the true costs of conservational behavior of humans that are sharing this space in the buildings, and also how we share the space outside of the buildings. But I'm focusing on the conservational behavior inside this building. And I guess one thing would be to sub-meter this building so that you could say, well, these are the costs for running the data center upstairs, and these are the costs for running the office space down below. But I've said a lot. Can you just give an overview of that tool?
Absolutely. So Portfolio Manager is a tool that takes in energy usage data, and so that would be the meter readings that you're referring to, and then breaks it down on how it compares against other similar types of buildings. And so one of the great things about that is it allows you to create a database of building usage levels for various types of buildings, say hotels to mixed use to apartment complexes, that sort of thing. And so it's very, very good at kind of creating a baseline of what is average or what is typical for your specific building type based on square footage and occupancy level and stuff like that. And again, all of that is dependent on getting that energy usage data directly into Portfolio Manager, which is something that Green Button Connect is really focused on streamlining, so you don't have to manually type in the values anymore. To answer your question on the sub-metering, that's not really something that Portfolio Manager specializes in. However, one of the technologies that is crucial to understand is that in a lot of locations now, and I believe in most of Ontario, they have smart meters. And so smart meters are meters, digital meters that is on the side of your building, and it will read a reading every 15 minutes or every hour. And so you go from having 1 reading per month to having 1 reading per hour. And so that's a huge expansion in the data that you can use as part of that. And one of the algorithms that a lot of companies and a lot of groups are looking at is what is called disaggregation. And disaggregation will take a look at those highly concentrated, much more concentrated than the monthly readings, data points, and be able to extract, based on the comparison to the other data points in that stream, what type of usage is going on. So they'll say, okay, that's probably lighting, or that's probably data center, or that's probably whatever. And so in theory, with enough training for the particular building, you would be able to take the energy usage data from a green button, and then you would be able to pull out, okay, this many kilowatt hours is from the lighting, this many kilowatt hours is from the heating and cooling, this many kilowatt hours is from the data center. And it would allow you to try to determine what the various things are without having to do installations of sub-meters. So you would be able to take historical data, analyze it, figure out what the various components are, and then when you do install sub-meters, you'd be able to compare that against the two. And so that sort of thing is really, really a very strong use case for smart meters. And the main thing that unlocks that and allows students or whoever to analyze that is the accessibility of that data, because normally that smart meter data was just like in a database at the utility somewhere and nobody else really could see it. With the green button initiative, you now as a group can pull that data with the consent of the building owner and analyze it for your own projects. And so that's the big shift that's going on, is smart meters plus data access is now unlocking a lot of this tooling.
Well, that's a great explanation. And what I learned from what you just said is I now understand the difference between a smart meter and a sub meters. That's great. And one more question, once we have you here and you're an expert. On my utility bill, it says that I can compare my usage to my neighborhood. Now, yeah. Sustainable Coburg is talking about doing, rather than individual retrofits to the house and getting credits, we can do that up here. We did it with our house, and unfortunately I didn't get a heat pump, so I blew that bad decision on my part. But Judy Smith, who's our Director of Climate Change for Sustainable Coburg, her idea is to do like a whole neighborhood retrofit. And I think that requires a whole lot of education, but can you speak briefly to that, the neighborhood comparison?
Sure. So one of the things that we have seen before in kind of a similar situation is what is called virtual net metering. And so what that is you get a collection of utility distribution points. And so that would be like different homes in a neighborhood. And if all of those homes are part of the same distribution node, so like the same substation, basically, all of that energy to those homes is flowing through the same kind of central point. And so to the utility, it basically looks like a single point. And so what you can do is you can aggregate the energy usage for all of those various homes and start to apply a group level of conservation or a group project to it. And so what we've seen before is, for example, if there is a open space where you can put some solar in, or you can put some sort of other energy project in, like a EV charging hub or something like that, and you are working with the utility to do that, they will be able to distribute the energy usage from that additional project evenly over the participants as part of that virtual sort of management. And so what we've seen before is where you basically have a whole bunch, say, dozens of various homes, and the energy usage or the energy savings from, say, like a solar generation facility would get distributed amongst all of the various individual distribution points as part of that node. And so that's really clever stuff that does need the utility participation. But if that's part of the initiatives that you're talking about, that's totally something that can be done.
Well, that's cool. And I think it's also a community building activity, because it forces the neighbors to come together and agree on something rather than go to council and complain about the taxes.
Right. I mean, the most common situation where we've seen this is in an apartment complex that has, you know, a single building and a single roof, and they put solar on the roof, and then they're able to, the tenants of the building can get their utility bills applied to the savings from that solar. And so that's a kind of a mini neighborhood that you're talking about there.
No, that's great. I know we have solar on this building, and it does offset peak hour usage here at Venture 13, but at the Coburg Community Center right across the road, it's a newer building, and it has solar as well, but it's rented. The solar is rented out to a company, and so it's not offsetting their use during the day. So this is great. Thanks very much. And as I said, we're going to extract that training that you did on Thursday, and we'll use that with the high school and university students here in the community. And we'll look for more use cases like the one you've described with smart meters. I think that's excellent in order to help us understand how we build community with this technology. So it's not just about technology, it's also about community well-being. Excellent.